Bam. Wait, what is that? I don't know what's going on there. Start. Okay, recording started. So, good evening officially and welcome to the Market Watch Group working sessions. Our foundations class. I'm going to talk about something here. I just thought about it. I'm going to discuss it in a minute. This is the beginner session. This is where anything goes. Any question, any topic. This is a safe learning space. So if there's just a few things you're like, man, I really just would like to ask this question, I'm going to bring it. This is it. Okay, I'm Scott. I'll be the host. And these are the disclaimers. Woo, that was fast. No advice, no recommendations. We're not brokers. We're not advisors. This is for education and illustration. And now to the platform. Okay. All right. Oh, you will have a question today. Love it. Loving it. Was it a selling day? Clearly it was. Clearly it was. So what does that mean? It means that this flag-ish pattern that looked like it could have been developing. Now, we didn't actually trade it. But honestly, it was tradable. That closed above what the flag pattern would have been. It actually did it with above average volume on Friday. And then what? And then we just sort of lost our nerve. But are we wrong? We're still holding this. That's our last low way back here. And here's an older low back here. And we're actually still at, right, if you look at this one, we're still holding that. That actually completes the cup. And now it's still a handle. Nothing has changed. Fundamentally for me. Technically for me. Fundamentally regarding technical analysis. How about that? How do you argue with that? The fundamentals of technical analysis. What do you think? I want to hear your thoughts. This is not enough to shake me. I'm not shaken. I'm not even stirred. I'm regarding. I see a cup and handle pattern. I still have a deep V. We're barely off of the highs. Even if we pulled back to this second level, that's still less than a 50% retracement, mind you. Bear that in mind. Miguel says he did not stop, but they got kissed. Yes. And yes to Clint as well. Maybe a September dip. Yeah. We know that there's a little bit of shakiness in September at times. Agreed. And here's the thing. We have to be careful that if tomorrow begins like at level and then it sells in the beginning of the day, you're still going to have to steel up, right? Knuckle up. And be prepared for that. Because the last thing you want to do, I'm going to remove these drawings. The last thing you want to do if it opens tomorrow and then it sells down to here and then watch it come back up and then finish here, that's a hammer. That's a hammer at an important level. And then if the next day it does this and you stopped out in this range right here, you're going to just pull your hair out. No? Yes? Yes. Oh, shit. Sorry. Yeah, it's nighttime. I'm not going to. But this is where intraday you're going to have to really kind of like potentially, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe tomorrow the futures are up. We're all over 21. Thank you, Clint. Sometimes I get like someone will send feedback in and they're like, you got to be careful about what you say sometimes. And I'm like, did I say something? I can't even remember. I'm like, did I say something offensive? Maybe I did. I don't know. Goodness. Okay. So I think you get the gist of it though. Tomorrow is an important day. I 100% agree. I think we all agree with that. And it's important enough that we cannot have like a disruption early in the day, only to it'll be interesting to see tomorrow. What are the futures doing now? Let me hide this for 1 second. Let's go take a little peekaroo. Are the buyers already trying to come back, or is it still leaving? So you can see exactly what we're looking at, where it just opens flat. And if it opens flat and sells off, you know what? We really should look. Let's go in. You can see here, all of this volume, it was down all the way to here, then up, then back, and then it finished here. All of that volume was basically a tie. All of that volume was a tie. From the top of this candle to the end, it was only down 55.40. Marginally, so marginally. And now we're still flat. So that's right now we're at equilibrium. But early today, clearly selling pressure. Let's just go take a peek at the first 20 minutes. No, we're going to even go. We're going to give it 40 tomorrow. We're not going to stay on that long, but we just want to be thinking, why am I doing that? Because if you notice here, that's all of this was selling pressure. Here's our opening range. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opening range, and then it broke it, and then it just kept going. The volume it broke on. This is ES. I need to actually pull this to SPY. Quick question. Do you feel like this is the right conversation based on how today went and what you're hoping we discuss for tomorrow? Because this is real life, right? Trading. This is the working session. You dictate. So I don't want to drive this bus down the wrong road. Right? So just let me know if it feels right or not. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna go 9. I'm gonna go. Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's the same amount. And let's look at the volume here. So let me look at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 900,000 there. 700. That's 1.6. 2.5 million plus. Let's just grab the first one of these. That's all on aggregate. Plus 6 million plus some of this. We're going to say 15 million. Why am I talking about this? Because tomorrow we want to see, right? Tomorrow we want to see how much volume do we get in that first half hour so we can recognize, is it significant? Is it the sellers pushing? Or if we see that the volume is only 7 or 8 million, even if it's down, we're going to give it much more flexibility. Now, this does require having the ability to peek at it. And I know not everybody does, and so that's tough, right? If you don't, you kind of have to decide, well, if you don't, you might not be doing anything anyways. That actually might even be better sometimes. The question is, what would you do with a stop loss? I'm certainly not going to let a stop loss trigger early, regardless of what the futures are doing. And then we'll see what happens. But we're going to get to look at it and talk about it together. I just wanted to highlight, how can we understand this better in the moment tomorrow morning? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to be watching that volume during that first half an hour. And if it looks like it's lighter than what we see, because I want you to notice, okay? I want you to notice. Let me erase that. I want you to notice that what we had here compared to what we have here or here right? Any of these, even here. This one had a little bit of tug of war to it, but none of them, even this one was close, but none of them had that. So that's going to be helpful to us to think if it's selling off a little, if the price is down near this level, which we were just there, or even a teeny little bit lower, if it opens, runs down to this point again, but the volume is light, I'm not going to worry. I'm going to think, I bet we can overcome that and come right back up. We're going to have to watch. I think everyone is right with your assessment that tomorrow's an important day, but we're not going to know with the opening range. We're not going to know immediately out of the opening range. It's going to be, okay, we're going to watch the morning session, right? Breaking it down the morning, 2.5, 3 hours. Then we have a little bit of a lunch break. And then coming back, what did the buyers do? Did they come back? Did they overwhelm? Did they lose steam? Coming off a long weekend, the net talks of recession may be part of the sell-off. Yeah, I mean, just jitters. Look, if you're wondering about the potential and ability for institutions to overreact, I want you to look at the VIX over the last month. And that the fact that it popped to a 65 is evidence of just how much there can be just this, herd mentality of overreaction where it's like, oh, what's going on? I mean, I bet the options were just off the chain expensive. I didn't even look when it was going to, 40, 45 and more from there. So, yeah. Manufacturing, people here he's buy, spike, and close. There sure was. In that last little bit, the sellers came in and then the buyers overwhelmed. We can see it when we go down to the 5 minute. Great observation. Just that little bit of the sellers trying to finish it and the buyers are like, no, we're not going to let it go down that far and it pop back up. Absolutely right. And now, as we look at the after hours, it's down a little bit in the after hours. That's not really meaningful necessarily. As I said, we'll look at tomorrow. We'll look at the volume, process the opening range, and we'll see. Because, look at what happened. So let's talk about it in context to trades, obviously. So we'll go to the ones that we looked at as a group. Amazon. Of course that doesn't look great. It didn't even come down to the halfway point. Actually, it maybe tested the halfway point and then bounced off of it. But whenever I have a big candle like that, I look at the middle of that as like, hey, that should hold from there. And so even if we test like this and test down here and come back up and it holds and then does this, we know how hiccups can go, right? We can't be easily shook from our trades. I think this looks fine. I'm really not looking at this like, oh, Amazon, what are we going to do? That was my pearl clutching voice, if you were wondering what pearl clutching sounds like. A lot of wailing and moaning. Oh. Let's go to the other one here. Let's down to PLTR. That one held up at first, and now it's definitely pulled back. Concerning? Yes, of course it is. We're not like robots. Like I don't feel anything, but we're holding. This was our support level. Initially, we said we would give it down to that stop loss point. We never really moved enough to move the stop yet, so it's not like it jeopardized the trade, but we're certainly not stoked either. What's the positive of today, if you can find one? Anyone want to tell me what they see on this chart that gives them a little ray of hope? A little sunshine ray of hope? David's typing. Stochastic. Okay, then I'm going to say actually 2 rays of hope. I'm not going to disagree with him. It did start to pinch a little. It's like, oh, a little pinchy. But it's definitely still showing us the same momentum it did when it turned. Again, we cannot get like easily shook. There's another time where it pinched and it pulled back a little. Whoops, it pulled back a little bit. And you can see, here's one. Imagine this one. You get in, and then it gives a little bit of a drop, and you're like, oh, what am I going to do? It's going against me. And then, bam, there's your trade. That's where you made your money. And you slipped. You slipped out. You got shook. We're not going to get shook. It's above the 50. Mine starts with a V, ends with an volume. Any guesses? I'm just kidding. Miguel was typing it. I'm going to give him credit. I saw the typing start, so I'm going to give him credit. That doesn't look like a sell-off to me. Does it to you? Let me zoom in. Oh, shit. Oh, goodness. My mouse is like acting up today. I don't know what's going on. What chart am I even on? All right, well, never mind. I'll redraw it. Woo. That. For PLTR, not problematic, right? Average volume, like back in this area when we're like, ooh, things are tumultuous. Average is 53. We're at 34 today. That's not the case for the S&P. Let's, now it's giving me the right stuff. So let's come back here. Let's zoom in. Just a click or two. 1 click's fine. That is a problem. Right? Nice. Double trade. What's the volume on the SPY? 50 million. What's today's volume? 60 million. That is a 20% increase. That's we don't love it. We definitely don't love it. If you look back here, we had a similar thing. And then a little worse. Then it paused. And then it really dropped. So if we're looking at this as the same, yeah. If we come down and hold this level and we do it with another day of increased volume, even if it has, so let's talk about that. Let's say it looks like this instead. And the volume is another above average volume day, boom, right? And you're like, oh, goodness. Even if coming out of this, you know, we had like a day or two, I would definitely be concerned about another drop. Not necessarily another correction. I mean, we could still come back into this area and find some support, but it would be enough of a consolidation that we would need to see this, right? A little mini. There's just some vol here. We have to be careful, right? So tomorrow will be important for us to assess what's going to help us. Yeah, we don't love that. That is concerning. It busted out now. What would make it less concerning? If we pause and we come all the way back into the consolidation, false alarm, more pearls getting clutched. But, boop, boop, boop. Let's go back until we get to here. What is going on? Never mind. I'll just erase it. But if instead we have a little pullback and a little pullback and then a turn, You guys know what that means. Or if you don't, I'm going to tell you. These are lows. Lows. Same lows. They're all down here. That would be a new low. What kind of a low would that be? A higher low. And when we get a higher low, we get concerned about this. Not that again, but possibly up in here again, right? If we have a double dip, which we did have last year at this exact time, to David's point about the month of September. So what does that mean? It means I'm not taking a stance. Be water, my friend. Does the blade of grass be like, you know what, today I'm like, screw it, throw caution to the wind, I'm standing up. Okay, I'm not. You're gonna get your head cut off. I'm gonna still be like, all right, let's prepare to play this thing fluidly, adaptively, like water. So it's not about us saying, hey, we're convinced we're going to know what's right. It's about us saying, hey, at a certain point, we're going to have a pretty good idea of what was more likely and then possibly take action that way, knowing exactly what would cause us to reverse that action or eliminate that, right, to stop that action, as it were. I don't know. I don't think we've hit it yet. Give me your thoughts. I've heard a lot of people say they didn't stop out. Let's go through the overall watch list. So as far as the things we're in, I think they look okay. As far as something like Apple, I already told you I didn't think that this initial bump was the sellers. We still actually went a little higher. Now we're actually in the consolidation. Even if we get through here, we maybe won't, but even if we got a little below that, that is still substantially a higher low. And we have plenty of room to run just back to make it. It's not a cup and handle yet. We don't cheat. We don't cheat and say, oh, it's pretty close. If it was really close, maybe we'll give it a little. But here I would say I've got a nice trade back up to the top of the cup. Then I would say let's look for the handle. Then we look for what? First the handle, then the cup. So do I look at this and think, oh man, Apple's falling apart. What are we going to do? Even when you look at the volume, average is 50, or average is 44. We were at 50. So it was above average by about 10%. No, I don't think anything is all that bad right now. Amazon we looked at. We're going to just give it a little bit of room, a little bit of flexibility. Even if it came back to this line and bounced from there, I'm going to give it that potential. AXP, great. I think anywhere from where it is now all the way back down to this level around 244. We've got about a 10-point range, a 4% range that this thing could just come in and then look to turn. This moving average is kind of, yeah, all right. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. Bank of America really didn't even pull back much, that one. BLDR. Woo, we were looking for it. We thought maybe this thing can stabilize. But the answer is not yet. Today it had a increased sell-off on volume, right? On increasing volume. And so, yeah, I'm going to say for me right now, this is still a wait and see, right? City. We were going to search. I'm a little bit hesitant to search right now. The reason I say that is because Are we sure the dust is settling? Or do we want to wait one more day? I mean, I guess we can search maybe financials. Actually, financials and industrials. Yeah, let's search. I said we're going to. Let's just run the watch list real quickly here. Citigroup pulling back. Caterpillar got beat up today. I'm definitely concerned when I see something like this. That's way more concerning, right? Yeah, that's easily something that could hurt. CL, the defensives. I really keep talking about this, but I missed on that one, unfortunately. CMG pulling back. We said we were waiting to see. I still think this is valid. It's below average volume. Anything above 5180, I'm going to be considering it. Costco, we waited, right? We waited. Same thing, average volume, but above the 50, I would trade coming out of that. I would still trade coming out of that. So where are we seeing opportunities? Financials, consumer, not discretionary, or excuse me, not staples, consumer discretionary. Maybe in industrials, still in Apple, and maybe in, I mean, it's everywhere. None of these have been like, oh man, the sellers have taken control. The Dow had some volume today, but all markets did. Fastenal, ooh, it's at support. That's a tough one because it did come with some volume. This is one that had some, but it hasn't broken support. Bending but not broken. GBTC, Bitcoin is a little under stress. Gold pulling back from the highs. Okay. And now the handle begins. We put General Motors on our lists. It got the deep V. We were pretty stoked about that. Today it had volume, but today's the first day. I don't care. Talk to me in 2 more days. Because if in 2 more days its volume is not anything worse than that, then I have no problem with that whatsoever. Yeah. All right. Google. That's concerning, Google, right? I liked Google a lot. I was hoping Google would stabilize. It's now taken out this low. It's getting close to this one. If it gets all the way down, then my thought is if it gets all the way to the very, very low, right down to here, then it's more like we think maybe it'll channel, and then I still need a higher low coming out of that. But with today's volume, this is nothing for at least a few days before we see some stability coming there. Home Depot looks fine. Why do our comments sometimes show up on your screen and other times we don't see it? On my screen or on the comment section? On the chart. I don't know. That's a good question. Oh, you know what? It may be when I'm actually on my other screen, if I'm actually clicked on the chart or on the platform, maybe it shows it. I don't know. I don't know that there's something that I do intentionally. There's just sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I would just reference comments in the comment section to be sure that you see them all. Home Depot looks fine. Volume is at average, higher high, still a higher low, no problem there. The Dow and the Russell both look very similar. I don't think we know more about one or the other. JP Morgan, come on down. Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Trade is Right. KB Homes, yeah, I thought that was going to hold. As long as it stays above the 50, still viable. Coke looks great. Defensive, missed one. McDonald's has some defensiveness about it, and I think that's setting up. I'm looking for it. Meta. Whew, I almost jumped on Friday. I'm glad I didn't. It's the same signal. It's holding the same place it was on Wednesday of last week. A little teeny bit above average volume. A little teeny bit. But not much. MMM. Yeah. I do think there's more defensiveness. Let's be ready for some fall defensiveness by thinking about MMM, any defensives, utilities, staples, etc. Financials pulling back, maybe. Microsoft. Microsoft, I was earlier in the day, I'm like, Microsoft could possibly, no. I mean, it's still the same place it was 3 days ago. To me, if it holds and then turns out of this, that's the same bounce. I'm okay with that if the stochastics turns up from there. Micron, the chips got hurt today. There's some uncertainty in the chips. Netflix got smashed down. Remember I said Netflix felt weird, and you can see this is where it is now. NVIDIA smashed. It pulled Palantir with it, but it's holding up better than the chip stocks are. The Qs got pulled with it. But all markets did. It was broad-based. Nothing really held up. So again, it's not informative yet. Other than it's broad-based, it's not like we're seeing a big, broad positioning of stocks into more defensive-oriented investments. TSM, very similar to the others, selling off on increased volume. UUP. A little bit of a pop on the dollar today, interestingly. I mean, it's still well below the 50, and it's still at or below the previous lows. But it got a little bit there, didn't it? Interestingly enough. We already talked about the VIX. The VIX got a pretty hefty inflation today. So it looked like it wanted to de-escalate and then just couldn't do it. It's concerning. That is one of the more concerning things about what's going on, in my opinion. Walmart just keeps on going. Okay, let's just take a pause. What are your concerns? What are your questions? What are your trades? What are your trades that you're most concerned about? We've just got a few minutes left in this one. We've processed, I think, the market. Okay, obviously we don't know what we're going to do until tomorrow comes along. But we have a sense of what we're looking for. We have a sense of how we're going to look for it. Right? What are we going to use to gauge early on in the day the likelihood of a recovery versus an increased sell-off? Even if we have a little bit of an increased sell-off. Well, actually, no. If we have an increased sell-off, that does shift things for me. Question on scoring volume on Sunday. Okay, you're going back to Sunday. If on Wednesday there is a red candle at, say, 50, and then a Thursday, a green candle at 20, are you saying hypothetically going forward? Or are you looking backwards? I don't know that I have the reference for this question. So you're going back to on Sunday. let me go back. And you're saying that on Sunday, what day is today? Tuesday? So this would have been Sunday, right? But only 30 days back. So it was something like that, right? And you're saying, are you saying why would I score one of these? I don't know if I understand the question. Yes. So you're saying that you believe this day right here, that should be for buyers? I want to see how we score this. Or sellers. Okay, let's take a quick little poll and then we'll talk about what I think and why. And again, everybody's going to score it for themselves. But anyone else want to weigh in? Everyone else has gone quiet. Would you guys score for A, the buyers, or B, the sellers? This day that's circled and pointed to with two arrows. Clint is a B. Oh, we have some. This to me indicates maybe a level of uncertainty in volume that I'm glad we're talking about it, right? I would want more confidence about how would I score this one. So if we look at this one here, we're like, that's clearly the sellers, right? Because it's a red candle. I'm trying to simulate it. One of the days has dropped off, Miguel, and so I tried to go back using a different mechanism to make sure that I can see all of it. Now, when we say, like today, we said the market is down 2%. That right there, that down 2%, that is not down 2% from today's open to today's close. That is down 2% looking at today's close relative to Friday's close. That's our reference point. When we're like, the market's up. Market's up relative to what? Not relative to the open. That's not what we describe when we say the market's up or down. The candle shows you if it's up or down relative to the open because that's how candles are constructed. Open body, it's up relative to the open. Closed body, it's down relative to the open. Right? That's all. When we're looking at a red candle versus a white candle, all it's telling you is where is it relative to the open. So if you look, let me erase these drawings and let's go. I'm going to use pink first. We closed here. The next day we closed here. That's the distance. That's the distance right here. And you're saying that's definitely, I'm going to give it an X for the sellers. That's what we do, right? That's definitely the sellers because of the gap. And then the next day, now if you look at the next day, that's not, if you look at the open versus the close, that's not very much. So would you say that the sellers didn't do very much on that day? Or would you say, you know what, it doesn't matter because that's the close. So we went from here to here. So we're saying that's the X. Yeah? Now, the next day, the sellers prevailed. Well, what do you mean prevailed? I think you're confusing two topics. So describe what you mean when you mean prevailed. Does that mean that they finished the day lower than it opened? Because if you look right here, that's the biggest drop yet. The biggest drop yet. And you're going to say that on the biggest drop yet, the buyers prevailed? I want you to listen to the language. On the worst drop of the 3 that I scored, the first 2 were for the sellers, but on the third one, even though it dropped further than the first 2 by quite some distance, you're still saying that the buyers prevailed. Again, everybody gets their own analysis, but if you're trying to get validation, I'm not going to, that doesn't work for me, right? That's what I'm illustrating is it's not the candle. The fact that this candle, no, we don't talk about that. No one's like, the market was up today, right? No one said that on that day. Nobody said, today the market's up. It wasn't up that day. It was down 3%. 3%. It was up 1% from the open, but it opened down 4%. That's my argument. We won't change how we scored as a group, but I'm not going to try to convince you. I'm going to say, look, be careful, because that's not how we read day to day. How you read the intraday candle is just that, intraday. That is not reflective of what happened relative to the previous day. And the previous day, that's what's important to us first and foremost. So the next day would be scored as a buyer. Yeah, theoretically, we did score that for buyers. We theoretically did score that for buyers, and then we did, even though those 2 washed each other out and they sort of canceled out anyways. But yeah, it's about the one day to the next day, not the open to the close of the same day. One day to the next day, to the next day, to the next day. We're not looking at anything as mutually independent from previous. I'm not. Now, if you've decided, you know what, I think there's an advantage and I'm going to do it this way. Okay, that's fantastic. I'm not going to be like, no, you're wrong to do that. Markets work in mysterious ways. I would imagine sometimes it works. Other times it's not going to work. I'm going to go with what's tried and true, but I'm also going with what realistically is the, that's the reading of day to day versus intraday candles. And you hopefully can see why, right? For me, I'm definitely saying that's a negative day. It was the worst one. It was down 3% that day. Now, from that point, did we recover? Yes, but we don't work in hindsight bias. We have to be thinking at the time, as we're scoring it, how do we score that? That's how I score it, negatively. Makes sense? Questions? Does that help for other people as far as, what happened there? Anyways, love it. Me too. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to do some searching and see if we can't find a couple of extra financial companies to add to the list and maybe a couple of industrial companies to add to the list. So let's take 5 minutes. I'm going to restart my charts. If anybody comes on and you're still here, you can let them know we're on intermission for 5 minutes. I'm going to go refill my water. So let's just take a quick pause. I'm going to stop the recording. I should have elevator music. I have music, but it doesn't play for everybody else. It only plays for me for some reason. I should look into that. I have swanky music that I like.